We're going to start doing videos on the Corvette. I have a whole bunch of stuff to do to it this year, and so I figured let's get that all on YouTube to record it, record the journey, record the choices. Currently there's an engine being built, and all of this stuff has to do with that, plus making it drive nicer. So in order to take up the horsepower that we're going to be getting, I keep saying we, I don't know why, to keep up with the horsepower, which you'll find in later videos as we talk about the engine, have to upgrade the rest of the driveline. The transmission I'll talk about in a different video, and what that's going to be like. But the rear end suspension of Corvettes, especially this era, have a lot of interesting pieces to them where they can hold a lot of horsepower, but you have to do certain things to them, and mine needs help like they all do if they've not been restored. I'm pretty sure the wheel bearings are going out. I don't think the rear end is going out, the diff, but this is an odd suspension setup. There's not a whole lot of other cars that are like it, and obviously because Corvettes just have to be different. I didn't really care that much about the undersides of a Corvette other than I knew they were fast. The body of this thing is what really drew me to it when I was a little kid. This thing just looks awesome. The Stingray, as everybody knows them by, modeled after the Mako Shark 2. So the 70, 71, and 72 is what I wanted. That's what I got. I got a 71. We're making this my dream runaround car. And so we're going to be putting a lot into this thing, making lots of upgrades. And this is video number 1 of that. So I will stop rambling and show you what I've done today is the very first step in putting a big block into a very old, unrestored 71 small block car. To be able to hold a stroker big block that is going to make probably over 600 horsepower at the crank. It would be surprising if it didn't. So that's the plan. First thing is first, today is loosening up the rear end, getting ready to do trailing arms. Trailing arms are the big nightmare for Corvette owners of this era. So suspension setup on this car, I'll maybe try and explain that first. Mufflers are a little bit in the way. So completely independent rear suspension. I'll bring this light around. There is the pumpkin up in there. That stays with the car, is mounted to this big cross member. That's one of the cross member mounts in the middle there. And then there's just a bar that goes over the other side. Yeah, differentials right there in the middle. Man, trying to do camera focus is hard. All right, so then you have half shafts. To hold the suspension in place, you have the half shaft is actually acting as the upper suspension arm. So then the lower suspension arm is this arm right here. And that's the lower suspension arm. Upper suspension arm is also the torque carrying thing. And there's some specific NHRA rules for that if you want to run down to 10.0. I don't know if I will get the fix for that. We will go over that if I do end up buying the piece to make that not a suspension member. Then it's just a trailing arm setup from there. Let's see if we can see this here. So there's the trailing arm. You can see most of that. Those arms are, well, the very first thing is actually the parking brake bracket. You can see the parking brake cable. I'll stick my finger in the camera here. Right here's the parking brake cable, goes up. The bracket is on the far side that you can't see, and it's about to hit the tire. So putting wider tires on this thing requires trailing arms, not because the trailing arm itself is really in the way until you get to a certain level, but mainly it's in the way a little bit. But the first thing to go is actually the parking brake bracket. Most people just relocate that, but I'm probably just going to buy replacement ones because there's a company that makes nice ones that are better. They have instead of a rubber bushing up on the front of the trailing arm mount up in there, instead of rubber bushing, they have bearings in them that are spherical and allow the trailing arm to twist in this direction as the car suspension is going up and down, so it doesn't add, if you have a rubber bushing in there, it adds to the spring rate of this. There's a video on globalwest.com. That's who I'm probably planning on buying those trailing arms from. But anyway, just a general description of the suspension. Like I said, independent, completely independent rear suspension. One leaf spring starts, it's bolted in the middle. One half of the leaf spring runs this rear tire. Other half of the leaf spring runs this tire. You can actually adjust the rear ride height in this thing from factory because you can just adjust the point of this bolt and, sorry, this nut and bolt combo, and you can raise the rear of the car by moving this nut, like by shortening this, increases the height of the tire versus the car, and so you can raise the rear ride height, which I did quite a bit because these are what did I put on this? 285s? Where are we at here? 275s. 275s, 60/15s on 10-inch wide wheels. These things are pretty massive. Yeah, so raising the suspension has made my alignment go to poop, and therefore I have really bad wear patterns on these tires. But that was... I was dumb and just left it go. I didn't figure it'd be that bad, but I also didn't care. I was getting to drive my car, and that was all I needed at the moment. So that's kind of the general gist of the suspension. I did get the adjustable Ride Tech single adjustable shocks for this car. I'm probably... What was I going to do? I think I'm going to I'm going to keep the ones in the rear, but the fronts are going to get changed to something, to probably Viking shocks up there. So the plan for now to take the horsepower is replacing the half shafts with chromoly 3-inch ones. These are 2.5-inch diameter. They went to 3. GM actually went to 3-inch after 75 or so. And they were stronger, and new ones would probably take close to that amount of horsepower that I need, but the chromoly ones are much, much better and will not break. And you really don't want those to break, like I said, because if you do twist off a half shaft, the tire gets to fold into the car this way because there's no upper suspension arm anymore, because this is the only other arm holding that trailing arm in place. So you can also get adjustable ones of these, which I think I will be getting from a different website. I'll show you that when they come in. But adjustable ones of those, so you can set up the suspension a little bit better. The original ones are adjustable with the cams. Come on. Just a regular old cam setup there. But that doesn't usually give you enough of adjustment. Oh, you can see my beautiful battery box right here that has had sheet metal put on top of rotting fiberglass, and then we put new fiberglass on top of the sheet metal, and so my battery is okay. It just looks really bad from the bottom side, but I'm not putting mirrors under my car like some people do. I drive my car, and I don't really care if this fiberglass falls off the bottom. It's just fine. The battery box is sufficiently glued to the rest of the car with more new fiberglass that you can't see that's on the other side of this, so I don't care. That's just going to be the way it is. So obviously all of this exhaust is going to get changed. Anyway, I'm on rear suspension today. So rear suspension everything is wet down here because I sprayed everything with that, and I'm going to let it soak. Maybe later this week I will try and tear it apart. The nightmarish part is the bolts that hold the trailing arm in. This is the trailing arm is right there, goes up, and the bolt is there. That is really, really, really difficult to get to because you have to it's really close to the body on that side. See if we can get a better, so the bolt, it's hard to even reach down here. There's the one end of the bolt right there. You can see that bolt head just behind the brake bracket there. And then there's another nut that's on the far side. Oh, there's a good picture of it. Kind of. It's all fuzzy, but whatever. Anyway, you do the toe in the rear by putting spacers on either side of your trailing arm, and then there's a nut on that back side over there that you can't see. Oh, it's way up in there. There it is. I think that's it. Anyway, he's buried up in there. So those are the worst part about doing these trailing arms. I need to put bearings in and spindles. So the spindle is the piece. This plate is clipped onto the spindle. So the spindle is what has the bolts for the wheel. Has a shaft that comes through on the wheel bearings that are inside the trailing arm. Then this bracket bolt, these two things bolt to that, and then you're onto the half shaft. Then there's stub axles. There's upgraded stub axles. So the stub axle part of it is the part that goes from this universal joint into the diff. And so you got to get upgraded ones of those too to run the horsepower that I'm running. So today was just jacking the car up and spraying it with PB Blaster absolutely everywhere so that I can get this all apart, replace the arms. We're probably replacing the diff. Gear ratio in it right now is 337 in the rear, which would be enough for the transmission that I'm planning on running, and it wouldn't be too tall, wouldn't be too short. But if I am changing it, if it's better to, I gotta see what the backlash is and stuff, and see if it's worth keeping as is, or if I should just replace it right away. If I do that, I might go to 370s. I don't want to go to 411s. I probably could go to 411s, but they're more expensive. 390s are more expensive than the 411s, and I don't really need either of those. It's just going to make it like really short gears, and this thing's already going to have way too much power anyway, so I don't really need any of those things. We will see what we pick for gear ratio, but right now the plan is to keep the 337s and that diff. No, that's actually not the case. The plan is probably I'm likely going to have to replace the diff and just get a rebuilt unit, not a brand new, not changing it. I looked into 4-link systems and solid axles for these things, and you could do it, and it would be not a whole lot different price from rebuilding all the stuff that's in this car already, but it's kind of 6 in one, half dozen in the other. Yeah, there's pros and cons, but for what I want, it doesn't make a huge difference either way, and I didn't really feel like getting out the welder. Having it kind of a little bit more in original state, if it's kind of the same price and it'll take the horsepower, is kind of all I need. I'm not professionally racing this thing. It's just going to be a for fun car, so I don't think it's ever going to get slicks. It's certainly not going to get like drag radials on it, so it's not going to be the really aggressive sticky stuff. If I do drag racing with it, I would put slicks on it so that it has some, like, actual bias ply slicks, so it has some forgiveness to it. I don't want to do radials because of how hard they are on the drive line of the car. I just don't want to beat it up that much. So if I do, the plan is hopefully to do drag and drive events. That would be my life goal for this thing. Doing a drag and drive event, competing with it that way, because I just think that it's fun. I've been watching the YouTube videos like everybody else. They look like a ton of fun. So this was the first long form, short form video. It's long form and one take, so you're just going to get whatever you get. PB Blaster was today. Lots of stuff to come this year. You'll find out as we're going. We're doing obviously engine, transmission, front and rear suspension, probably a roll bar, maybe seats. The interior was all done last year, so we will see where this thing goes. There's going to be a lot of stuff done to it this year. Hopefully I can drive it some. I can kind of pick and do the projects in shorter amounts of time so that the thing isn't just up on blocks the whole year like it was last year. That wasn't so much fun. That was a lot of work. But now it's all together. The interior is all black now, and that's much, much nicer than the blue. Oh, other thing we're doing this year is wrapping it. I have wrap. I will show that. And it's just going to be, it's not going to be like a pattern. It's just a different color. We're going to go with, I'll show that as we do it. But that's going to be a project, going to be a learning curve. Might have to replace the hood too with a higher. I already have an L88 hood, but I might have to get a tall L88 hood for the engine that we're doing. Maybe we'll be able to get away with shaving the carb pad down. But I'm going to do the special L88 air cleaner, which will be a cool, really a cool novelty thing to the engine bay. I really like those. They're really cool. You can buy the kit to do that, and it's just a pretty unique air filter setup for this car. Haven't really seen it on many other things, so it's cool. So we'll do that too. So yeah, this is the first video of many as this car evolves into the best street driving smile machine that I can make. So yep, that's your message for today. So see you next time.